this conference really tries to bring those sorts of things together so that we can talk. We have one of the challenges of asking marginalised people to come into institutionalised spaces. And that means that as an institution we need to change the way the structures work. So on that sort of level we've had quite a job to do. Either just handling the way the language of the call, the registration, how all of that works, who gets paid, artists get paid to do things, academics get supported by the universities to do things, all of these sorts of layers need to be addressed. Which means that institutions may be assuming things like binary gender, where we have other communities who are not necessarily assuming these things. I'm not what we're thinking. So what I'm trying to do is break the institution into thinking about how this kind of cultural capital that we have here is preventing other people from entering those spaces, or who does it benefit, to raise the question, who does it actually benefit to shape that up? Does that benefit the institution, or does it really benefit the people who are not engaging in the institution at all? Are things like as they are? I'm not going to go through all of this because we don't have time, but we do have a lot of practical things that we want to achieve through the conference. I want to try and break down this divide of events a little bit more, to get more nuanced sorts of discussion going, bring different voices and values together. Essentially the voices of people who are not employed by institutions, who are self-employed. Because, I include myself in this, many of us who work in institutions may be existing in kind of vacuum. And the last few years have really taught me a lot about what my place is in that respect. So we have these kind of solo studio spaces, electroacoustic scene, for example, they're kind of ivory tower sound studios. And then we have other kinds of spaces. When you start talking about them as other, you already start to realise that we have this ivory tower sort of mentality. What does that mean? How do we question it? To understand this is a political issue, it's an issue about social justice. It's not just, as it used to be for me, about getting more girls into music technology, but it's a much stronger political, wider social justice sort of issue about, and the metaphor I like is passing the microphone, power sharing, and these sorts of things which can be very uncomfortable for some people to start thinking about for the first time and question their own sorts of unconscious biases around this. But also to see how spaces that currently exist become transformed and physically manifest and sonically manifest differently differently to what we're used to in those spaces, when the people in those spaces change. These are not new ideas, but hopefully you'll see in a very physical sort of way the kinds of installations. I'm very excited about that. The kind of installations that are happening in these spaces because we're inviting different people into those spaces. So we sort of have a code for the weekend, and what I'd like to do is get a pen so you can add to it. We're going to try and break things up a little bit. I would love to have had it sitting on the floor whenever chilling out this session today. We just ran out of time to get the beanbags in, and trust me, we have the beanbags and they're ready. You can get to sit on them later on. But because not everybody is comfortable just sitting upright in a lecture situation, I want to say feel free to, as long as you're not disrupting the person obviously who's presenting, and try to come and go between sessions, between papers. But feel free to go and sit on the floor, look out the window, move around. It's important you feel comfortable in this space. From the point of view that we're going to touch on more topics that maybe have very different views coming into the space, what I'm going to say is safety is not accidental. It requires mindfulness from all of us. And I want to establish from the start that this is, as Go corrected me recently very carefully, this is not a safe space, but it's a safer space. We're talking about some very tricky issues potentially. So I'm asking for a respectful acceptance and exploration of views, some of which might be diametrically opposed, and to realise that some people in these spaces may have been very patiently navigating something like racism for a long time, and that can become very exhausting. So if you feel that something is touching you for the first time, to just reflect on what your intention is when you're speaking. Is it to listen and to truly understand? And that's what I would like to sort of present from that point of view. But we also don't want to censor. We want to have meaningful dialogue, so by the end of the weekend, we really have some really clear ideas about what is meaningful moving forward from a discursive, academic, activist, all of those perspectives, points of view. So practicals. If anybody wants to introduce themselves as female or male identifying pronouns or they or neutral pronouns, very, very comfortable for you to do that. That's not something we normally hear in an academic space, but it's something I'd like to see happening a lot more, and it's something I'm becoming more comfortable. I'm female pronouns, so we'll get that out of the way quickly so it becomes normal. We will be filming and live streaming. We've asked permission from anybody who's going to be presenting whether we can do that or not. If you don't want to be on the live stream, take a look at the video there, and you can move out of the way of the camera. So that's the best we can do. Of course, we have social media. We're not. I don't know if we're broadcasting yet, but we will be after panel session for sure, because that's going to be a safe space as well. We don't want to broadcast that session. There will be a URL. I'll tweet it and I'll hashtag it Inclusive Sound. So if you're on Twitter, it's Inclusive Sound. If you're on Facebook, we have a Facebook Inclusive Sound group. If you can't find it, it's on the schedule, which is printed. Just ask me if you have any questions. And during the day, we'll try and get a Padlet up and running so that you can dump thoughts and ideas and resources onto that. You have to forgive us if in some respects we look like we've cut some corners. That's actually my mum out there helping. That's not because the university can't afford to pay people, but we have prioritised bursaries and food. So the food that you'll get later is really lovely vegan food, but she could only do so much for the amount of money that we're paying. So treat my mum with intense kindness. In fact, she offered, and I thought, actually, that'd be kind of lovely. So, yeah, we want you to be relaxed and enjoy yourself. The other practical thing is the classic, we have a fire escape here. If you come out of this here and to the left into the stairwell, there's another fire escape there on the right. And then you've got the ones that you came into as well. Are you okay to start?
Slides not on.
So, please make yourselves feel comfortable. Rearrange the chairs as you see fit. You probably won't feel so comfortable to do that right away. That's a definite.
Thank you. Excellent. I'd say an extra hello. I know a few of you, but there are new friends amongst you. I look forward to meeting you over the weekend. My name's Lisa Colton. I'm one of Liz's colleagues, and I'm the director of the Centre for the Study of Music, Gender and Identity, which has been established at this university since 2010, and we're supporting this conference. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who's Sally Gross. She's from the University of Westminster. She's recently completed a project called Can Music Make You Sick?, which is the largest ever across the world survey into musicians and their mental health. Is that right? Is that enough of the qualifying the largest, the most global?
It is absolutely the biggest. That's been the headline.
Yes.
I will talk about numbers, but numbers are very big right now, so we need big numbers. So I have huge numbers to back that one up. Yes.
So we're really delighted to welcome her, and I love the fact that we're starting with a Let's Change the Record opening. So let's welcome Sally.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for being here. And I would have been here with my daughter, Cinnamon Ducasse, who unfortunately can't make it today. And one of the reasons, one of the things following up on from what Liz was saying, I just want to just kind of tell you a little bit about myself and how I have lived since the 1970s. I had my first child when I was a teenager, and I just left school when I was 17. So anyway, but so all my education has been done at night school or evening classes, or and I have 3 degrees up to masters, but they've all been done in that setting. I've got 4 children. I started my first record label in my council flat in Haringey in London, and I was the first ever woman to do A&R in a British major record label in the 90s. So I have worked in a very exclusively male, macho record industry, in the pop music industry, electronic music industry, and with DJs and producers like William Orbit, Tricky, Moby lived in my house. And my house, when I moved to the council flat, I managed to buy a large house. I can't tell you that story right now, but in the early days when mortgages were made available, people could just get them, and I was literally on benefits and I got a mortgage. Can we erase that? But the very important thing about that is that we work collectively. Everybody that I worked with, from the people that helped me with my children, everybody, and the woman that mostly looked after my children won a Grammy last year as a manager. So I'm incredibly proud of Hannah Joseph, who was 17 when I said, "You've got to look after the kids. It's mayhem in this house." But we ran this house, on average there were 12 people a night sleeping in it from all over the world for 26 years. I sold it a few years ago. That's enough. And I still have a recording studio at the bottom of my garden, and it's there available for people that want to come work in it. And I'm head of business affairs for a French label called Yabasta, which is the home of a band called Gotan Project. And I'm still head of business affairs. And I also run the MA in Music Business Management at the University of Westminster, and I was for some time a music lawyer. So my specialisms are intellectual property, copyright, music business, and creativity, full stop, yeah, and the politics of creativity, because the creative process involves a lot of politics, not only personal but systemic, and so those are the issues that brought me. I came into teaching at the University of Westminster as a non-academic from industry. I arrived and I was like, where are the women? You know, I've done working with men, where are the women? And not only were there no women, really there was one other woman in the department, there was certainly no other female course leaders in the music department, and I came into an environment that I had been told and read about was a leading centre of diversity and change in the popular music industry. And I got there and it was like, this looks really familiar. And right from the very beginning, when I arrived, I thought, okay, what are we doing about this? How are we addressing these issues? Who are we getting in as students, right? How are we approaching teaching? What does it mean to know something about music, right? I'm very interested in that whole idea of what I call the knowledge economy. Who are the people giving value to what knowledge is, right? So that, primarily, that was important. I am going to tell you about this in a second. So that was the setting. I arrived in the university. Obviously, I have been used to working in both very, very high-end. I worked at Mercury Records, super commercial, pop-end. It was, an absolute baptism of fire, because no matter what you think happens in a major record company, I'm sure that's like going to the House of Parliament as well. Whatever we think goes on in there, it's much worse when you're actually in there. So when you get in there, you discover, the micro-politics of the building, who you have to relate to. The music industry is fundamentally a networked relationship. So one of the amazing signs that when I came here, because I've been very excited about coming here, and I arrived here, and as I walked up there, I saw a poem by Lem Sissay. And I put Lem's first record out when he was 18 on my label, which is called Unheard Records, and his record was called Earthbound. And so wherever I go, me and Lem are always sending each other snapshots of what we do now, because it's hilarious in that sense. And it's also wonderful, I'm super proud of Lem because he's amazing. Anyway, so what did we do? So in 2016, there was an outbreak in the media of gender issues in the music industry. Bjork, and I was like, oh God, it's not good for women. I'm like, really, sisters, wake up. Where have you been? It's never been good for women, full stop. So taking a cue from something we did a lot in the 70s, I was very involved in student politics and just politics in general. I cannot understand people that tell me they're not involved in politics. Okay, what planet are you living in? So for me, it's very, it was like, okay, what can we do? We'll do what we used to, take action. Occupy, when I saw the Occupy movement, I thought, okay, this is interesting. This is like, let's seize space. And it was very obvious in the women's movement that this, and in the Black Panther movement, it's this idea of occupying space. We are here. So we've been talking a lot about how in creative spaces women are made invisible by the process, right? So women come in and the process becomes technofied, is what I call it. So you become the producer guy and the mix engineer, and these roles appear that attach to technology. and they attach to a system of knowledge that is supposed to prefer something greater, some greater skill than singing, which is nice, but it's not so clever as the technology bit with the machine, okay, because that's hardware, There's a big difference, So women somehow become part of the software, which is part of the invisible network of music creation. So we took over D9 Studio. I'm just going to read you the title of D9 Studio because I love how it is. It's a solid state logic duality, 48-channel desk with a large library, right? And it's exclusively only for the MA students and private hire. So the university spends an absolute millions on building a studio, not for the general population of the university. Its very intention is to be exclusive. Weirdly, there's absolutely no women in the building. So we just took it over. And my daughter, Cinnamon, who studies ancient law at St Andrews, and is also a music maker. I said, can you come and help me, because I need help. We need to do this very quickly because we've got to pounce. This is the moment. In a minute, I'm going to tell you what we had to do structurally to make this happen, because there were lots and lots of problems. But I'm just going to show you a few images from that weekend. So it's a 48-hour takeover where our idea was simply to take over. So I'm saying it was an experiment in the most fundamental fashion, because we hadn't really worked out what we were teaching. What we really worked out was that we wanted to be in a space that we occupy. We wanted to feel, what did that actually feel like? What's the effect of appearing to take control of a space in that way? So my friend DJ Paulette, who's one of the original Hacienda DJs and has a radio show in France, lives in Ibiza, Paulette came in. Hannah V, who is Rihanna's keyboard player and has been touring with Rihanna, and Hannah is amazing. She's the most amazing ball of fire. I don't know how I'm doing for time, so somebody needs to be waving at me. Right, okay. So these are the things that had to happen for us to be allowed to have a women-only space in the university. I had to prove that somewhere in the university they had already had a women-only space. Because the first thing that was said to me is, you can't do that because it's discriminatory. So I had to go around, and then I saw, just scrolling through the website, this thing, Women in the Boardroom. What's that? Went and found out. And that is, in the business school, a short course that they run for women only to help women go into the boardroom. So once I had that, I had, we can do that, right? I had to show them, because they love the media. It's a media and arts department, so they just love a bit of media. So I showed them some things in a magazine where Fruity Loops, a software company, had sponsored a women-only software thing in Brick Lane in East London. So I showed them that, like, oh, that's great. Showed them loads of, things from just the media in general, things at Radio 1, Annie Mac, all over the place, The Guardian, everybody was writing about something women in music. But the most significant thing that had to happen was that the head of music had to leave the building, because he absolutely was not going to allow this to happen. And so he, in a redevelopment of the department, this is like all happening all at the same time. It was like combustion. He left the building, and then I was told I could do it, and I was like, right. And then we went straight in. So we had like a 4-week run up to the point where we were like, book the studio, sent the messages out on Facebook. We were inundated with responses, but we could only have 20 bodies in the studio because of insurance purposes. And these are sort of things we hadn't thought about. In our head it was going to be like a mini festival. I was like, we'll all just get in there and be a party. And that, obviously that wasn't going to happen. And then we thought, well, we've got to have some, we've got to invite people, we've got to tell them what we're doing. So we put together a programme, and we decided in that time, one of the things that we felt would be maybe the most helpful, and one of the things that I've learned from running the MA is that when people from industry come in, or wherever they're from, across the music industries, and the music industry is a vast environment with people doing all kinds of things, from playing tambourine to running a major label or social media or whatever. So one of the things that I noticed is that students really enjoy hearing how people got to where they are, what were the things they actually did. So we decided that we would have these moments of guest speakers arriving across the weekend to talk to the women. And even the word women was like, are we going to use the word women? That was, we spent days arguing about that and what do we say? And yeah, I mean, I still feel exactly the same way as Liz. I'm not really sure what to say at this point. Although I am also very interested in the materiality of bodies, and so that's another thing that I think that I've been reading a lot of Silvia Federici, this Italian feminist, and she writes very interestingly about how women's work is invisible, and I think there are real echoes to that in all of the creative arts. And I think the idea of social reproduction, how do we reproduce these systems? We have to consider how we reproduce humans within that, and where is the role of care centred? So there's some really, there's some really interesting people writing and talking about this at the moment. So this is Caroline Adcock, who is Beth Orton's sound engineer, live sound engineer, and she's also a tour manager. And she gave the most amazing class that was called Training Your Ears, and we sat in darkness and lay on the floor in the big live room that has incredible speakers, and she played bits of sound, and we had to identify where it was coming from, where it was recorded. So she played some violins that had been recorded in a barn, and then some music that had been recorded in a cave, and talked to her. And it was honestly, it made me, when she finished, I wanted to rewrite the MA programme. And just, people going, oh God, what is music? We had this really exciting moment when everyone's going, we're like, oh. And it was really exciting, but it was like, oh, move on, we've got to run over to we've got to go look at that studio, we've got to look at press some buttons, quick, And it was just, so that, I would say that was one of the things that was really difficult when you set yourself a 48-hour challenge like this. And so this is one of the MA Audio. So MA Audio Production at the University of Westminster has, and I've looked at all the numbers. I've got very number-oriented in my research years, and has, a ridiculously low number percentage-wise, and sometimes as low as 5%, on a good year maybe 20%, of applicants. That's let alone people that get accepted, that's applicants, and then looking at who graduates, and anyway, that's going to bring me to my next point. But so we had lots of buttons to look at, and technology to. So this is Yvonne Ellis, and Yvonne Ellis co-produced the first Simply Red album, and she's one of the kind of forewomen of live audio engineering in the UK, and works with all the factory bands, and is a very dear and old friend of mine, and she's an amazing woman. And she came in and played through a 7-minute ambient dub mix that she made for an Ibiza compilation that just sounded incredible in that studio. So it was another moment of just the kind of ecstasy of sound. That's one of the things that I'm always trying to get people to remember, that music it's not simply an economic value. It is not something that makes business. It's something that gives us pleasure. It's part of the rhythms of our life. And if you devalue music by over-concentrating on its economic value, you are doing everybody an injustice, So Yvonne, again, was inspirational, and her fantastic story of being a fashion designer who became a sound engineer, with no training, and I knew someone, they needed a sound engineer. I didn't know what that was, I plugged that in, it worked, And then just amazing stories of crazy days on the road, sometimes for many, many weeks. this is a map that I made, and I can't open it here, it's not opening. So I will send it to everybody. What we want to do is, it's a very good, large map of where women appear in literature around music. So one side is massively biographies and, you know, artists, and then you'll be able to see when I send it to you, and it's open, so you can start to add into it. And what we want women to do is add into it, so that we grow this big map of where women are in technology and business. And okay, so I just wanted to tell you a couple of things about what happened on that weekend. So the first thing that happened, these are one of the first things that happened after the weekend, is that we really understood that the exclusion of non-women in this technological environment was very enriching for the participants, not only the women coming to talk about their careers, but for the women learners. And part of that was just feeling more relaxed, like everybody felt more relaxed. People felt, there were lots of comments about feeling able to ask questions, feeling less intimidated. People still felt intimidated. I think machinery has become gendered. That would be my argument, that machinery is gendered. And I'm trying to de-gender my machinery. I'm trying to make friends with computers. I'm not an actual friend of machines, except cars. Well, you know. But exactly. That's how kind of messed up our attitudes are to these things. But we're all in it. You know, it's so implicit in our understanding of how we move around space and how we move around technology, that for me, we now live in a world in which we are with our machines in emotional relationships. I think that's really true. I think we talk to our phones talk to us. We take commands from our machines. We take instructions, ideas, you know, listen to this, you might like that. You know, in the end, we can't deny that we're in a relationship with technology. So I think, you know, Donna Haraway is really interesting about that. I think that kind of investigation into the responsibility that we have to the world that we live in includes our responsibility to technology. And that, as teachers, means it includes our responsibility to how we teach in this environment, right? So a lot of the younger women had lots of things to say. Most of all it was too short. Overridingly, it was too short. We didn't have enough time. But everybody was excited. There was a real, everybody was excited, and everybody that came and joined, everybody that spoke in that weekend is now doing something about this. And it's become very, very much in, you know, and on my MA, my students are writing about these things, are researching it. So Bettina, who was the MA student from Malta who worked on the project, has been hired as a music technician at Westminster. Westminster has appointed the first ever female head of music technology, which was amazing, except she resigned last week.
Oh no.
Which was a big sad face, yeah, emoji sad face. BA Performance hired a woman to teach electronic music. They have made me the Athena Swan champion. Sally Rogers, who's at Leeds, is doing all kinds of things around electronic music and gender. Yvonne Ellis and Karen in Manchester are working on a women in music and media. Karen Gabby's a presenter, and black presenter in Manchester. And we have designed a women's only short, Women into Music Technology. And what we want to do, because one of the things that I'm really interested in is the economics of education and how the economics of education will impact on women. You know, I'm really interested in intersectionality. There's no way that we all have access. I get really annoyed when people say, it's up to you, because I'm really, okay, go to the food bank. You know, just get real. You know, it isn't the same for everybody, and that we've got to think about how we work together. We have to think about how these things change. So interestingly, I would say that personally in terms of the music department and the dynamics at Westminster, the 99% of the staff who are male are extremely resistant to this. I've had insulting emails, very aggressive emails, and people being very upset about the whole idea. And one person being supportive, but interestingly, all the new staff that have come in are very supportive. And interestingly, the university is interested in the idea because behind some of the numbers we gave them, we showed some of the experiments that have been going on in America and how they've increased student numbers, and everybody wants more students, so that's good. So how these things are spun becomes a very interesting thing. So one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of where we are in this is that for me, I'm at the other end of my career, and I absolutely don't give a at all, and I don't care. Like, they can sack me, I don't care. They're not going to sack me, but they could, but they're not going to. She says. But being a lawyer, kind of know. So I really think that one of the very exciting things for me is that I really feel totally liberated by that idea. So I'm going to call you out on every occasion. I don't give. And that means one of the things that I think is so important about being able to explore, touch technology, record your own sound, make a noise, be bad, don't be good in it, don't be perfect, don't be nice, all of those things are incredibly important when we get to the next stage, which is the conversion of your creative work into copyright and intellectual property. And this is where we see another tranche of women disappear, right? And that for me is very important. I am forever re-educating music producers in copyright law, fundamentally. If you were in the room, you contributed to the sound, you are a writer, right? Unless contract law, which is the joker card of all creation, excludes you through contract. So by signing a contract, because you signed a contract for £50, you give over your rights to who the producer is, right? Because I work in France and have worked in France for the last 20 years, where moral rights are not wavered, I can see how moral rights are being articulated by artists and writers to gain copyright. Whereas here, we have the habit of wavering moral rights. And although moral rights are not an economic right, they are a right to the proof of your authorship, right? So in the UK and the US, which is the predominant, I call the music triangle, at the top of that, the top of the global north, we are dominated by IP and copyright regulation that is American in its orientation, which does not recognise moral rights, and a country built on slavery cannot recognise moral rights, which is fundamental difference, right? So there are historic reasons why these happened. We have to keep remembering not only what we need to do now, but what went before to help us do what we do now with confidence. And those are things that are really important for us with Let's Change the Record. This is a really open thing. Anyone can take the logo, anyone can do a Let's Change the Record. We did a pop-up event in a pub in East London, which was really good. We want to do more of those. We want to do more things that don't have to be charged for, don't have to be controlled by the university structure. And everything changes. So wherever you are, you can make changes, and that's a really important message, because things really do change. That's it.
Thank you, Sally. It's just really a call to action, as well as reflecting. Thank you for reflecting so openly and with such joy enabled you to have the career that you have. I know we have people set up on Skype ready to go. We started
just 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Actually, if anyone wants.
well, that's what I was just going to say. I think in the interest of trying to start this discussion that's going to take us through the day and just set up Skype, it would be great to have some questions or some thoughts from the floor. Yes. Hello. Good morning.
Hi everyone, I'm Shanti. I have a couple of questions and points that I'm pretty sure we'll be discussing throughout the day, so even if there's no answers now, it's totally fine. That was really wonderful and really inspiring. I guess my 2 points, the first one is I was really inspired by your attitude towards your position and your role, and saying that you feel really fierce that you can, you don't give a and say all this stuff. But I'm also very aware of the fact that there's a lot of us not in that position. So I'm interested in creating support networks to help people, let's say, lower down the rung, or in different spaces where they might not have those conditions around them. So I'm sure that's something you've thought about. So maybe just thinking about how to support each other in that.
Yeah. Well, number one, you have. It depends where you are and in that setting. But one of the things that I always say to creatives is you have recourse to the law.
Mm-hmm.
Copyright law is not there to rule you out, it's there to enable you. And so in situations where people are, it's very hard in employment. It was very hard. When I first walked into the university, I was hired initially because they wanted me to do some research on the music industry, and it was weird circumstances, and then I got hired. And I was in a very foreign country, the university, the other side of it. I was like, oh God. And it took me ages to work out what goes on there, And so I think that all of those things are hard, but I think having support groups, having people that you can call, I have, you can email me people, I'm very happy to help.
Yeah, for the specifics on copyright, but also just for the calling out, just for being in a position to be able to call a professor out as a first year PhD student, things like that. So these kinds of levels of support.
Absolutely. My research, Can Music Make You Sick, which when I first tried to do that for 4 years. The head of research told me I wasn't a researcher, first of all. Then when I represented it, he said it's not an idea. And then I got funded for it for $100,000, and they were like, it's brilliant. The same guy then had to sit next to me at a conference in the university and introduce it, and I didn't even want to sit next to him. I was just like, you have to be kidding! It can't be him. It's got to be anyone. There must be someone else in the building that's sitting next to me, not him. But he just sat there and just was like, yeah, this is great for the University of Westminster. I just wanted to stamp on his head.
It sounds so hypocritical, doesn't it, when somebody has to, that person who has been the gatekeeper that's not let you in, then does all the smiley and nicey bits. But the optimist in me thinks that actually seeing that success is something that they can see as evidence of change, and that they are able then, perhaps over a longer period of time, to reflect and change in their attitude. And I certainly have seen that in some small ways within this institution. But it does take a lot of self-reflection and those sorts of skills in the person who has been that person, to realise that not only have they misjudged and got it wrong, but also that they are potentially very insensitive by then appearing to be your advocate.
But in the 70s, there were lots of women, because my first degree is in fine art, but there were a lot of women that were going outside of the institution. They were going to writing to women artists in America and asking them to support them, and getting letters of support from other people to bring into the universities. And although that might sound like a lot of effort, sometimes it's worth doing just to get those people in their particular block to understand that actually there's other things going on. That's why I'm using the numbers to show in the department you cannot justify running a course that has spent millions on building a studio that women are technically never going to get into, because somehow they never even get through your administration process, So
that was a really striking point. There are spaces in this building, which you only have access to book if you're on certain courses, certain modules on certain courses, which means if you're not already on those courses, you can't get into those places.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that in terms of particular types of exclusion. Joe, question.
That was a great talk.
And then we should move on after that.
Yes.
What do you think about? I'm a student here and I'm studying creative music technology after a career in something else. So I've come into a male-dominated world. I was in another sector, the environmental sector, and that was male to start with. But by the time I left 20 years later, it was a much more mixed workplace. So what do you think about? So I was quite shocked when I came into this world, and all a lot of the stuff that I've learned has been about men's work. What do you think about kind of departmental policies on positive discrimination? So
I'm totally up.
in the lecture, the lecturer must cite female work. They must play female
Absolutely.
work. Female work must be analysed by music students, even if it's much less proportion. Because I think the role model thing is really
sorry,
important.
I didn't say that, but I think role models are really important. Visibility is really important, and I know I wrote to our law school, Westminster Law School, ran a masterclass on music industry lawyers for some reason, and they were literally 6 white men, middle-aged white men, and the law school was very diverse, and so I wrote to the head of law and I said, none of the people that you're teaching will grow up even to be those men. You know what I mean? They can't even achieve it just through their biological beings. So if you have to be a master, you have to be a white middle-aged male, you just excluded all of those students. So you cannot put them on your panels because you just need to look a bit harder, because there are great black lawyers and there are great black women lawyers, and there are, just look a bit outside of your circle. So, I mean, we can continue this discussion, but I personally, I do not allow that to happen in my department at all. I'm absolutely savage with people, and I just feel like you have to do that. And my experience of working in record industries in America, I first went to record industries in America, and I went to black music departments, which we don't have here, which I found really like, wow, because I was working with drum and bass and bands were mixed of ethnicity. But the one thing that I found very liberating and very interesting was being the only white person in the room. You know, and I was like, wow, this is extraordinary, because so it was very interesting, and I really actually thought it was amazing, and it was like, the world could be a different place if you make it. Yeah, anyway.
Thank you so much. Can we just make Sally, please stick? So our next 2 presentations are going to be delivered through Skype. So fingers crossed with the technology. I think so far so good. I'm going to ask the presenters to maybe very briefly introduce themselves before they give their presentation, so that we can hear the context of their work in their own words. And again, these are going to be 20-minute presentations with some short time for questioning ahead of the break. So the next presentation is Carmina Vos, voicing out the search for representation, inclusivity and political power by walking and singing. Let's welcome our international speakers.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Luisa. I'm a Brazilian musician, student, composer, singer, and now I'm studying for a master's degree at São Paulo University. And my researches are based most in music and feminism. So I'll try to present here a little bit of this meeting of these 2 stuff. I apologize because my English is not really practicing here. So if you have any doubts or you want to, and I'm not making myself clear, you can ask me anytime. So my presentation is page 1. Where is it? sorry. I'm talking about a performance I have made last year, November last year, with a group called Vozeral, which means free of voices here in Brazil. But before we start, I would like to speak a little bit about our context, our political context here. I don't know if you know about the coup we're having here. Last year, our president, which is a woman, has been impeached, and she and the other politicians who took her place are making a lot of retrocess, political, economical, social, cultural, and it's like a explains a little bit what we are living here, especially on internet and all these places we can write whatever we want and we can put a lot of anger. And with this we have two sizes, generically speaking, because we have a lot of, but we have this right-wing radicalization, which is in page 2 of my presentation. If you can put down this, yes. So we have this right wing with a lot of Christian evangelic groups, which doesn't they don't want to give spaces to minorities like women, LGBT, Indians, black people. In this and the other way, we have these resistance groups, like all of these groups I've said now, that are having making a lot of movements, a lot of meetings, a lot of performances, which is a way of resistance, and my performance was something like this. Also, we had mayor, last mayor in São Paulo specifically, which is the city I live. Not now, because now I'm in Rio de Janeiro, but I live in São Paulo. This mayor was a really interesting guy because he wanted us to occupy streets with recreation. So he closed a lot of avenues. He wanted us to fill the city. And São Paulo is not a really greedy city with a lot of good things to do in the city. Like Rio, we have beaches, we have a lot of parks. São Paulo has this stuff, but it doesn't has this attractive. So this mayor was really, really important to the city. And now we are retroceding also with our current mayor. His name was Fernando Haddad. So this is a little bit of political context. On next page, I explain a little bit what is Vozeral, this group I have on the school. I give lessons. Could you put page 3, please? Vozeral is this group that me and Rita Maria, which is also a teacher, and which is now in Mexico, also talking about our work, our performances. And we meet every week at this school called Canto do Brasil. We practice improvisation and vocal arrangements. And it was not a goal, but we are 10 women, so we became a feminist group. So the songs we chose, the type of performance we started to make had to to think about this stuff, because women in music, especially in Brazil, I don't know, in other countries like Brazil, but we are minority, and most of the time we are singers, and there is a gender hierarchy. I don't know if you have this word, but like musicians, they have more knowledge, more theoretical knowledge. So they kind of think they can be more than the singers. So we have a lot of relationships based on this kind of hierarchy. On the next page, I explain a little what is this performance we've made. I tried we wanted to walk in streets because in these times we are all in mobile phones and earphones. We don't communicate a lot in streets in São Paulo, so in the world. So we try to walk like actively and singing to make people feel another kind of experience. And with a lot of women singing, we try to find representativity, and with another lyrics who talks about things we can say about feminism, like the rape culture, about the objectifying women, about women trying to have their voices. It resumes like this. And the reference to to this paper and to our performance was Francesco Carelli, who talks a little bit about this kind of walking actively. Div Corrigan, who also makes a performance like this. She walks talking to people and creating something with her voice like this. And Adriana Cavalheiro, who is a feminist writer and talks a lot about the voice philosophy. So I'm based a lot on their jobs, their work. Next page, I talk a little about our walking. And in the beginning, we tried to do something like 30, 40 minutes, but we extended, and it was really exhausting because it was warm, sun, and we walked a lot without many waters, but it was something like passionate. And we tried to pass over different spaces, like this closed overpass, which is recreation, and people make exercises. And it was Sunday morning, so it changes a lot the function of people who are passing by. We passed by a street food market, then we passed by a residential area. We passed through an upper class shopping center, which was really strange and funny. And then we arrived in a square, which was also people having exercises or having sun, laying down. It was different. It was nice, and we got there singing and interacting or not. It depends of the people who were there. Of course, when we started this, we had some expectativas. I don't know.
Expectations.
Expectations, thank you. We had a lot of expectations, and it was funny because I didn't know that passing by a street food market could be so powerful. So I would like to pass a little bit of the video that I sent. Do you have it there? I can send by Skype. Yes, it's big, so the first 4 minutes it's okay. You don't need to see everything. Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm just going to refresh this because I'm sure we're missing something.
And then there was a mistake. There's a black bit. There's a bit without you on the. Okay.
I didn't know that. Shall I just continue through the black bit till after?
Yeah, that's fine. Apologies. Yeah, that's. Yeah. Okay. No worries.
Yes, yes, please. If you want to watch all the video, the link can be disponibilized. So this walk we had some funny reactions, like a girl that was really curious and wanted to know what we were singing, because this song is a popular song that has some strange words, like tapuia, and she wanted to know what is tapuia. I guess it's a fish. It's a kind of fish, and this song is public domain, so it's little we sang a lot of times. And another funny reaction that we don't have on this video, but it's interesting to talk. It's that on that mall we passed through. A note, sir, was really curious also about a song that we were singing that doesn't mean anything, because it's a lot of words that doesn't make any sense. And the composer is a singer from Mozambique, singer and composer from Mozambique. And this guy was really bothered because he didn't know what we were singing, the meaning. So there are two reactions with curiosity, but that they talked with us in different ways. And I guess this is also an example of gender. On the last page, I put the songs we sang on this walk and a few songs that we sing on our performances. If you're curious to listen, to go, there are a lot of recordings. Not from us, because we sing in the streets, but there's this artist. And last page, I put the reference. I forgot to tell this in the beginning, but I would like to thank a lot Rui, which was my teacher last year, and he's now with me presenting this paper, and he was a really good support. So he's now Rui, if you want to say anything. Rui?
Yes, I'm here. I don't have anything else to add to the presentation. Louisa is really the star of the show. Just I think one of the things that we tried to do last year during the course was to think about sound practices and how they can be a factor for change or a factor for producing a type of a micropolitics. And I think that's where the context of Louisa's presentation really try to touch upon, how this type of performance can be a disruptive of every day, but also pose questions in terms of gender and bodily representation and in the everyday Brazilian landscape. So I really don't have anything else to add. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so that's it.
What fascinating work, and I feel it's particularly privileged to see the video, and it's great that it's filmed, so you're almost with them on their journey. There are probably lots of questions. Yes.
Thank you, Camina. Wonderful, and also your colleague for making the very pertinent statement. Pam Bernard, I wanted to ask whether are you analysing this using walking ethnography methodology? A walking ethnography. Are you analysing this? How are you analysing it? And if so, how are you getting at
the influence of political change? Are you getting at the change politically? Hello?
I'm analyzing this with the perspective of gender. So I use methods by Adriana Cavalheiro, which is this writer of philosophy of vocal expression, and some terms like I don't know what they say in English by Pierre Bourdieu, dominion, masculine dominion, domination, masculine domination, maybe. So I analyze this by this hierarchy of gender and the chances we have to have voices. So we in this literally way, or static way, or musical way, all these ways we have to occupy spaces. And the other question, influence. I don't think I understand. Political change. So if we can still sing in streets, is that?
Can we rephrase the question a bit more simply?
Okay, so how you in your title you say voicing out the search for representation, inclusivity, and political power. How are you researching the influence, impact, or other of this performance practice in terms of political power? How are you researching and getting at the political power issue in practice and research?
Is that a little bit clearer?
Louisa, can I translate? Would it be okay if I translate?
No,
The
I
question?
think I got
Okay.
it. Okay, thank you. Well, now I need the translation. Câmara dos Vereadores. Como falaria isso?
The assembly, the deputy assembly, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. In city, we have a few movements of women and trying to fight for their rights, and a few laws, especially in São Paulo. And we interact with groups like this. So they created a house of women that has a lot of debates and meetings and performances. So it's kind of all connected. We have something like this example that Samia Bonfim, which is a politician in São Paulo, and she organized a lot of meetings like this, mixing performances, groups of resistance, and tries to change laws and some proceedings. Did I answer your question?
Thank you very much. Time for one more short question from this one. Yes, Ingrid Plum.
Hi, thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
I have a comment and a question, which the comment you probably thought of already, but if you do record this, I would love to hear it recorded through binaural microphones on the performers, to hear it through the female perspective as they walk through being catcalled. And my question is, when I saw it was an 80-minute journey of performance, by the end, were you physically tired, and did that affect the performance and how you responded or felt about the catcalling that you were receiving? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. That's fine.
So it was was recorded by Rui, which was all the walking with us, and by Rita, which is the other teacher. The Rita recording is funny because it was with her, so we can hear from her perspective, with her voice a little louder and all voices. So I can send to Liz, and she can send to you or to anyone that has interest of hearing it. It's I can send.
I also have
The
a
other
recording.
Pode falar, Rui.
Sorry, Lisa. I also have a binaural recording of the performance for the first hour. So if there's an interest, I can also share that with Liz. Okay.
Yes, I think in the interest of time, just it's a very really interesting question. But I think we should move on to the final presenters because they're also waiting to present. But can we thank our two participants here?
We have a page Vozeral in Facebook, and also if you want to make another question and talk to me, you can add me over there. My name is Luisa Toller.
Thank you. Yes,
So
yeah. So
This is-
on Louisa Tolle on the program. Thank you, Louisa.
thank you very much.
I don't know.
Okay. Did anyone else feel quite vulnerable as they were going through the street market? I felt my, bits of my body get quite worried with them. Yeah. I'm making a sound in that space, and they're not marching. They're very, quite gentle, and yet I could feel people responding quite aggressively, and really shows the importance of this really creative work. So we're going to see if we can get by the final speaker of this session.
If we can't, we have videos of the presentation. It streams very slowly, so.
This is looking promising.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, brilliant. I need to turn you up a little bit, and I need to just change the slides over. 1 second.
So while this is doing that, this is a presentation of Holding Hands with My Sisters, but only the loud, noisy, loving, sensitive and revolutionary ones. Reflections on feminist collaborative initiatives in music in Brazil and resistance and creativity policy implications. Lots for us to think about in there. It's great we can include this one.
Okay. I'm sharing the screen. So
What?
or you can share your screen if you prefer.
I think it's easier, don't you? Can I try to share?
Yeah, okay. How do I unshare?
Under conversations.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Stop sharing the screen.
Right. You share your screen, and I think we're sorted. Could you possibly turn your microphone up a little bit?
Yeah. It's better.
Yeah, you're still quite quiet.
Okay, I'll try to speak louder.
Thank you. And if you could share your screen, brilliant.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm starting.
Thank you very much. So we look forward to his presentation in about 20 minutes, and then with time for short questions afterwards. That would be great. Let's welcome our next speaker.
So, well, first of all, good morning. In this communication, we analyzed the political dimension of two feminist collaborative initiatives in music in Brazil, as well the manifestations of resistance and creativity in the face of colonialist models. Who are we? Our speaking comes from three performers, researchers, and composers, white and non-white, from the southeast and southeastern Brazil, cisgender, with undergraduate and graduate degrees in music. I'm the first one, Tânia, Isabel Nogueira, and Camila Zerbinati. Our academic education should be understood as privileged one, since we represent 1.5% of the Brazilian population in terms of schooling, according to IBGE. So are our artistic activities, which in Brazil are consumed by people with great purchasing power and cultural formation, more aligned with European and American tradition. We also consider ourselves privileged people for our color, even if one of us considers herself as non-white, me. None of us are seen locally as black or indigenous, which again guarantees us a privileged position in relation to other black or non-white women. Thus, when we propose to speak of the perspective of rupture with colonizing models and schemes and privileges, we are aware of the limits of our speeches, since they themselves come from the privileged place in our local context. Also, it's worth mentioning that this work is an academic reflection and does not intend to speak on behalf of any particular group. In this work, we take as a reference mainly the music knowledge of Brazilian conservatories and universities, which are based on the repertoire of European countries, Germany, Austria, Italy, etc., and the United States. Probably these models are not the same as the ones of those countries, but the current discourse in Brazil is that this repertoire and the way of approaching it, usually solitary, competitive, and extremely demanding way, is our gateway to the world of music. With this, we analyze that our institutions produce and reproduce its courses and training, practices of our privileged classes, supposedly based on the European and American culture. These discourses and practices are not created and invented out of nothing. They have a history, and this history is closely linked to the process of colonization of America, according to thinkers allied with theories from the global south. During the 70s, post-colonial theories flourished in the field of cultural studies, as well as criticisms of the concepts of development and developing. In general terms, the use of these terms are associated with notions of wealth and poverty applied to the countries, where the rich ones are the developed ones and the poor ones are the underdeveloped. In the concept of development lies the idea that countries classified as underdeveloped or developing not only wish to be developed, but should move to that end, with the help of developed countries, mainly through financial loans and also public policies. However, as Millian Lang points out, the perspective of a whole world of developed countries is unsustainable, since the wealth achieved by rich countries has been and is only possible through the exploitation and extractivism of poor countries, both in terms of human and material resources. And things of the global south realize that the model of economic development of rich countries do not translate into happiness and well-being of the population. So these concepts, development, underdevelopment, and the notions of wealth and poverty were being questioned. In the same period, in the 1970s, the feminist movements and the so-called second wave are at full stream. During the second wave, it was possible for many more women to occupy positions of power in strategic institutions of knowledge production like universities and also governments. At the same time, many of these conquests concerned a certain class of women, leaving many others, such as black women, Latinas, Indians, working class women, and from developed localities of the world. It was necessary to denounce attitudes, behaviors, discourses, exclusionary, racist, elitist, and classist practice in the feminist movement itself. These so-called non-hegemonic feminisms, black, post-colonial, colonial, Marxist, require that their different contexts and specificities of struggle and desire exist to be heard, appointed, and respected. This will be the basis for the theories of coloniality of power developed by Aníbal Quijano, and also the coloniality of gender developed by Maria Lugones. Both authors are part of the group Coloniality Modernity, with which they developed these concepts and the theory of decoloniality. Other important concepts developed by the group was coloniality of knowledge and internal coloniality and coloniality of being. It's important to note that decolonialism is based mainly on the idea that the colonial process invented, created, and propagated from the event of colonization in the 15th century continued in progress even with the end of the colonialist system and beginning of the so-called modernism. The concept of the colonial modernism system proposed by Maria Lugones indicates that the people found in the colonialized territories were characterized from preconceived concepts of gender, which attribute to the construction of gender according to the biological determinism, of thought their humanity was not evident. Indians and Indies, black man and black woman, were long considered non-humans, or a lower category of humans. They were seen as being beasts with some degree of intelligence that made them capable of being categorized. Thus, Lugones says, a colonized woman is an empty category. No woman is colonized. No colonized male is a woman, suggesting that the category woman does not apply to such people considered non-human or subhuman. It's a category defined for and by a very specific model. With this, Maria Lugones proposed the recognition of things that more than colonized women resist to the coloniality of gender from the colonial difference. For her, resistance is the tension between subjection and active subjectivity, that is to say, the minimum notion of agency necessary to the relation of oppression, resistance, to be an active relation, without appeal to the maximum sense of agency of the modern subject. From her idea of active subjectivity, what we commonly understand as marks of oppression in supposed subaltern groups becomes points of resistance, pride, creativity, and positive identity. Lugones suggests that people from colonized places incorporated colonizing and modern values and practices. We from Latin America, for example, would be located in a third place or a border place. In Brazil, we are experiencing an intense blossoming of women in experimental music through appropriation of technology, collective creation and at work, learning new possibilities in music and conviviality that are not common in our traditional institutions of teaching, producing, and placement of music. The examples we brought today are two of many. We understand that both represent possibilities of resistance. However, we recognize the limitations when thinking about these examples in a wider Brazilian context. The first example is the Mostra XX show. Broadly speaking, the show is an event that brings together music and artistic production performed only by women. In the Facebook page of the show held in São Paulo in 2015, the shared text was as follows: XX Show is a show that aims to provide a meeting between women creators and give vent to the artistic production that emerges from this confluence. There will be music works transiting between experimental, sound, visual art, photography, improvisation, and performance. 3 editions were held: 2 in California, 2014 and 2016, and 1 in São Paulo, 2015. In the head of these editions was Fernanda Alck Navarro, a Brazilian composer. We are going to concentrate on the Brazilian edition 2015. In Brazil, the XX show had Fernanda Alck as the event's owner in partnership with the composers, artists, performers Natasha Maurer and Renata Roman. The event was attended by 10 artists. In the local context of the city of São Paulo, the event can be considered a milestone for some reasons. To understand the impact of the show that the show had, it's important to say that São Paulo, being the city with the greatest economic and cultural power in the country, is often considered the only or the greatest reference in many cultural fields in Brazil. This condition is responsible for establishing a Brazilian imaginary of which São Paulo is the cradle of innovations in Brazil, and at the same time, the other localities are marginal and do not establish themselves as reference or possible models. In this way, the internal colonialism proposed by Walter Mignolo is configured. Often, that what prevails, contrary to what we might imagine, is not necessarily what differs, but what reaffirms the positions of power. Also, it should be said that the female presence in the scene, or thought much more representative than other fields of creation in music, is still quite a minority. The city's main experimental music production and promotion venues are mostly male, man-run, with performances by men, and frequented by men. It is in this context that the XX show established itself as a milestone that weakens the relations of internal colonialism, which are within the colonialism of gender, as Maria Lugones puts it. When performing an experimental music event, all run by women, without an aesthetic pre-establishment, assuming improvisation at various levels, with women from other localities besides São Paulo, the XX show can break with some production logics with very strong roots in the city. Thus, it launched seeds for the formation of initiatives for the production of women's experimental music in the city of São Paulo, like the project Dissonantes by Renata Roman and Natasha Maurer, which disseminates experimental music in São Paulo but made by women, a direct result of the show. They exchange ideas through the internet, and each produces It provides greater visibility to the issue of women in experimental music in the local context. It can group in the same event women from different localities in Brazil. Perhaps the most important mark of breaking with the or weakening of the hegemonic logics of musical production so strong in the city of São Paulo and in Brazil was precisely the collectivity and